Yes, thank you very much for braving the weather. Of course, this is your hometown, and you guys know your weather here. I wanted to recognize Council Member Sugimura, who really was the impetus behind this, at least for the administration. Our involvement was at her invitation to come and bring our partners with us. I do want to thank Dr. Fink and Kathy Ho for flying in today. And then, of course, going back to Oahu tonight. So thank you, folks, for taking that extra effort to be here with us tonight. So as pointed out by Mahina, who has been out of work the last few days, because as you can hear in her voice, she's sick, and she came here tonight to sort of close our meeting out here tonight. So I wanted to thank her for coming out here as well. So I'm just welcoming everybody. Thank you again for hosting us here and for the state DOE for letting us use this perfect facility for our meetings. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Mahina, and I'll be here to answer questions at the end of the evening as well. Thank you.
You know how hard it is to be a communications person and then you lose your voice. I think everybody is very grateful for a change, but nonetheless, got my voice back just in time to join all of you, so happy to be here. Tonight, we're gonna hear a little bit from our Emergency Management Administrator, Amos. He'll have a brief update. Last week, you heard from Army Corps of Engineer and the terrific work they did. We wrapped it all up, pretty exciting. Tonight, we're gonna share a little bit about the needs assessment input that we got. We'll hear a little bit about next steps going forward. But before we do all of that, we'll go to our Amos here, and then we'll hear from the Department of Health, who has just been outstanding, catching a plane every week, driving up to Kula, coming to the meeting, helping with questions, getting back in their car, and then running back to the airport. And then they return the next day for the Lahaina meeting. Very unusual, very, very gracious of them and helpful to have the State Department Director, Dr. Fink, and Dr. Ho to come and spend so much time here on Maui. We'll also hear from Kimo, from our Deputy Director of the Department of Water Supply. These are gonna be finishing off some of the questions that came up at last week's meeting. And then from there, we're gonna share some of this information. So at this time, could I please call up Amos?
Aloha mai kākou. I believe, well, I'm pretty sure that this is my first time addressing you all as the new Maui Emergency Management Administrator. So I just wanted to give my aloha to all of you. I guess I'll share a little bit about myself. I'm retired from the Maui Fire Department. I was a battalion chief for the Maui Fire Department, served 25 years for our county, prematurely retired because of a bout with stage 3 colon cancer that I overcame without surgery or chemo. But left the department a little early to take care of my health and my family. But I am back to serve all of you. I'm really excited to be able to help my community again and work with all of you. I already had an initial conversation a few weeks ago with Councilwoman Yukile regarding some of the concerns that she has, and I'm excited to work on that with her. I believe that we have a meeting already scheduled on February 29th, Pukalani Community Center, where we can engage in more detail in those conversations. There is a lot to do. I must say there's a lot to consider. And I am actively working on a lot of different aspects of resiliency, which come in many forms, whether it's education, preparedness, whether it's hazard mitigation, infrastructural types of things, and or response. Lots of things to do. I'm excited to work with all of you in that regard. Hope to see all of you guys soon and engage after. Thank you.
We got so used to Amos that we didn't realize he wasn't actually here in person. And I know Mayor would want to expand a little bit on how he found Amos and all the good things. So we'll do that a little bit at the very end, but at this time, we'll turn it over to Department of Health.
Aloha. I want to apologize. I know we've missed a couple of the recent meetings due to just that's a legislative hearing schedule. Apologize for that. And I do when, oh, I think we're on a little closer. Okay. And actually, I want to recognize Kathy. She's the one who made sure to come out here every week. And she actually is the one who comes here on Tuesdays and then flies into Lahaina on Wednesdays for those meetings. So she's the one who's doing that. I'll be honest with you, I'm not doing that right now. So she deserves all that credit. Yes. And it's important. I know we're on Oahu, but being here and showing we care enough to get out here as much as we can, it's important. And for us to take that time, I hope it's at least our way of showing that it is important, and we're trying our best to be here and be present, with you and do what we can through this process. With that, I think Kathy's just going to give you kind of the latest test results. But we certainly, are grateful for the opportunity to just be hopefully part of the recovery process, which will continue, and we will continue to be involved.
Aloha, my name is Kathy Ho. I'm the Deputy Director for Environmental Health. I just want to say it was my honor to come here to speak to you when I was able to. And I think it was very important for you to hear from the Department of Health. And we heard your concerns. And so with that in mind, what we did was we set up purple sensors and EBAMs to help you understand the air quality in your community. As we're moving towards Lahaina for their debris removal, we have taken away a few of the EBAMs and we've located them in Lahaina. We will continue to keep up the purple sensors, at least for now, so that you can continue to monitor your air quality. Speaking of air quality, as we told you that we were taking samples of your air quality, the last results came in. We posted them on the website last week. I'm happy to report there was no asbestos. The heavy metals were at very low detections, below the health risk. So those are all good things. We, again, thank you. We're here to answer any questions that you may have later. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Kimo Langa, the Deputy for Department of Water. So in October of last year, 2023, we finished amending the last unsafe water advisory. After that period, we go into long-term monitoring. So that lasts for 3 consecutive months on each one of the areas. And then we will continue quarterly sampling for 1 to 2 years. So that's the process for monitoring the system that was affected by the fire. Our reservoirs right now, 85% full. With this rain, I expect it to top off in the next couple of days. I think last week there was a question about one of our tanks. That's our Waiakoa farm lot tank. Somebody mentioned about there was a lot of trees and everything. Okay, so that tank is currently offline because it leaks. It's scheduled to be replaced. Within the property, the trees are cleared, and we will be clearing the rest of the property in the next 2 weeks and getting rid of all the rest of the water. So that's it.
Thanks, Kimo. And he'll be available for questions after. He may not know that, but he does know. Thank you, Kimo. I just saw you look at me. I want to share, oh, and I forgot the clicker, excuse me. Hopefully you can see this. Last week, we offered a QR code and asked everyone to just begin to share some input so that we can begin to take the next step. So we wanted to share with you a little bit on this. This is going to stay on our Facebook Live recording as well, so you can always have a close-up view of it. But I'm going to just go over it a little bit. On the needs assessment survey, we got 17 responses out of, from those who responded, 60% were directly impacted, while 22% were Kula residents and 19 were other. What was important was that we had a lot of directly impacted residents responding. So this is going to be helpful to know as far as the sources of the information. We took the keywords of all the input that we received, and these are what we call a Wordle, if you've never heard that Wordle. So Wordle tells us which word pops out the most frequent. So you can see that rebuilding, Kula Watershed Alliance, forest rehabilitation, management, gulch, landscape recovery, a lot of holistic thinking. This wasn't just about the properties that were destroyed in the fire or the specific families that were impacted, but a little broader community-minded thought that went into it, which is great because it truly reflects community desires going forward. And of course, expediting permitting. I actually thought that was going to be take up the whole screen following last week's conversation about permitting. But as you can see, thank you for your trust, I'm going to assume. After our Office of Recovery was able, you met Keanu Lauhi last week. She talked about our work to push forward expedited permitting. I'm going to assume the size of this tells us that we did a good job and reassuring Kula that that is our intention. We're going to move forward. So that's wonderful. Oh, sorry. These are if this sounds familiar, this is from last week. These are the 6 focus areas that the county's Office of Recovery stays focused on and underscores all of its work. And these 6 areas fulfill all of the issues and forward-moving action that the Kula community residents told us about last week and in the needs assessment. So it's important to know that these 6 key areas of housing, infrastructure, health and social services, natural and cultural resources, community planning, and economic building or recovery are all encompassing. So I think all of the priorities that came forward and will continue to come forward will fall within these areas. So in other words, the county will be moving in tangent with what the upcountry community is defining as things that are important. And you have terrific advocates within your community leadership. So all of that will give us that strength to just move forward together. But it is not going to be easy, and it's not going to be a very simple sequence of steps. But I think if we put everything on the table, and knowing that we've been here since November with Councilmember Sugimura's help, we can continue to, just keep using that as traction and leverage. The key themes that fell within those focus areas that came forward in the feedback we got in housing, it was about insurance. And I'm very happy we were able to bring our insurance commissioner to you. I know you've been asking for Commissioner Gordon Ito for, I think, over a month and a half, and it was difficult to schedule, but he finally came. Thought it was great, committed a lot of work, and was here and made himself available. So we know that insurance under housing is important. Office of Expedited Permitting. Under infrastructure, the hardening of utilities continues to be important. Drinking water and debris program. And under health and social services, it's the independent soil testing, mental health for residents, and health of neighbors. I think health of neighbors came regularly. Oh, I'm going to ask Sarah to complete.
I guess this is not in my job description, but I will always help Mahina out. So under natural cultural resources, this was a very big theme that we saw in the responses. And we're lucky to have Kula Community Watershed Alliance here with us. They're currently working on a lot of the recovery support functions under the Natural Cultural Resource, RSF, working with the county, the state, and the federal government. And they've been attending those meetings for months. So just to kind of show you that, you guys have amazing advocates in your community, and they're already getting a head start on a lot of these projects. Some of the key highlights for Natural Culture Resources are watershed health, Mauka to Makai. You guys talked about a lot of different things in terms of wanting water quality testing, not just within your watersheds, immediate stream beds and things like that, but also in the areas that the watershed empties into. So things like Ma'alaya and Kihei, to see if, any of the ash and debris are running into those environments and impacting those aquatic resources. Some of the other major themes are resilience to wildfires and maintaining invasive species control. Sarah Takula from Kula Community Watershed Alliance can shed more light on what they're currently doing in some of the projects that they thought about. But we really wanted to highlight that you guys all collectively thought this was important. And then lastly, under natural culture resources was erosion and soil stabilization. And as you see, a lot of these things go hand in hand. So we'll continue to work and kind of start to develop projects and give you guys updates as that moves forward. For economic recovery, you guys talked about some impacts to agricultural lands, and you guys also asked for if there's businesses impacted, to have different grants and programs to help support those businesses come back. There was a few questions about whether or not some of the adjacent farms and their produce were impacted by the ash and debris from the fires. So these are all kinds of questions that we'll consider and try to get answers for you as we move forward. Community planning, some of the key themes was to continue to stay engaged with Kula Community Watershed Alliance, with your amazing council member, and also to have our community planning RSF be able to engage and have boots on the ground, so we can continue to monitor your guys' needs in real time as those progress over time. Because as we all know, recovery is not a short term, it's a long term, and you guys want to be resilient and sustainable as you move forward. And that is the end of the slides. So sorry that you had to deal with me put on the spot, but thank you to Mahina for starting the presentation. And if you guys have any questions, we'd love to answer them. Thank you.
Wowza. Without a beat, just comes up. That is Sarah Jenkins. She's actually part of our contractor team, hired when Mahina loses her voice and then, just kind of comes in. But thank you, Sarah. She's been working on this really hard. We'd like to bring up Council Member Sugimura to talk about the options going forward and some interest that she has as well. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. You know what is really a miracle is when we first started doing these meetings, the amount of people that are sitting in the audience. We have now more U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA and everybody else, and the amount of residents and numbers have decreased. And I think what it tells me is really a testament to the wonderful work that FEMA, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the team, the cultural advisors, everybody has done, as Kula is 100% done with debris removal. So give yourselves a big hand. Thank you very much. I think a week ago, there was a closing of the work that was done up country. And so now we are in the next stages, which is really to do resiliency work. And when I first met Bob Fenton, he told me, you know what, FEMA has grants. So I still remember that. And I think we will be looking at you to help us, because I know that from my experience, if you have a plan, if you have money to support it, it always helps it move forward faster than just words and ideas. And I really want to stand behind the neighbors, but behind the work of the Kula Watershed Alliance too. My plans forward is what I want to do is thank you very much for doing this, Mayor, taking over these meetings. And it really was Darryl Oliveira, at that time, before we got Amos Hewitt to take over. He was the emergency management person. And so one day I went to see managing director, and I just said, can you guys do upcountry meetings too? And they picked up the phone, called him. He said, yes. Next day there was a meeting. Or maybe that was the same day. I mean, he was pretty amazing too. So Amos, we have big shoes to fill, and we know you will do it. But what I would like to do for next steps forward is to continue having these meetings, work with the Alliance. But I already asked, once we get the permitting process worked out through the council, to have that come, and whoever is having building permits, please come and listen to what the next steps forward are, because I think it'll be a lesson for everybody on how we can make permitting better. But for sure, everyone who lost a home, I hope that we can do the permitting faster. So that's one request I've made, as well as funding, and as well as getting the neighbors involved in how can you be the proactive person to make sure your home does not burn. To the things that you can do, don't leave all the trash on the side of your house. Like I'm cutting 3 large cypress trees because they're leaning up against my balcony. So that's happening actually February 1st, just because of everything I've learned with this wildfire. And thank you, Sarah, for helping me find the company to do that. But things like that. And so that's what I want to take you next steps forward. I hope that FEMA, you can come back and still talk to us, Army Corps and everybody, Department of Health, thank you very much. Mayor, thank you very, very much for doing this. You're the busiest guy on the island. And thanks for making the time and caring about us. I think that's his biggest statements that you make by doing this. So everybody, thank you. And I look forward to calling more meetings, and I hope that, I will satisfy the questions that you have. And please always email me or call me, and I'm here for you. Thank you.
I have to smile when she mentions Darryl Oliveira, because, in community work, having community meetings is really important. But we've done about a dozen or so of those here. And for Lahaina, we'll probably head into 52 community meetings by the end of the year. So Darryl Oliveira was the one that said, let's do weekly community meetings. And then he took off and went back home to Hilo. But we are learning wonderful lessons, are truly committed, and we're here for the long haul. We just know that your local leadership will have that opportunity to take it to the next mile, and we're there to support. And I love how Councilmember Sugimura asked all of our federal partners on camera for their continued support, and everyone nodded on camera. So appreciate that, very wise move. I'd like to invite Sarah Kula to talk a little bit about what the Alliance does, because you all are going to have the wealth of so much advocacy work out there. So Sarah, and then we're going to turn over to Mayor and help with any questions later. So.
Aloha kako. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I know most of you, and so for a lot of you, this won't be new, but the Kula Community Watershed Alliance was founded of, by, and for the fire survivors of Kula, and we are led by an all-fire survivor neighborhood council, and we're working under a 501c3 fiscal sponsor called Nakoa Manu Conservation, who has a lot of interest in watershed health and the health of Native Hawaiian species. So great overlap with the work that we're doing. Today, or actually yesterday, we started soil stabilization on our 8th acre in Kula. And we're just working in places where we understand there won't be government support through the NRCS Emergency Watershed Protection Program. There are some gaps there, so we're using our funding to fill those gaps. That program, I've been told by somebody high up that it will happen, it'll start happening in February. This community has been, as patiently as we can, been waiting for that work to begin. And the Alliance was sort of activated to work faster than government. I just want to say, I totally respect what Mayor Bisson said at the last meeting, that, the government regularly is told that they're slow and they don't do it right. And I really truly believe that it needs to be a partnership with the community at all times, not just in times of great need. So the Alliance is really doing that, and the community is leading and is doing a lot of things first, to be honest. And we're proud of that. And I think that's just out of the need, right? We have to do it. And so the Alliance has been meeting since mid-August, and until the holidays, we met consistently every single week. We have now gone to every other week. Everyone in the community who's interested in this topic of resiliency on the landscape, watershed health, soil stabilization, making sure the wattle trees don't come back, you are all welcome to become part of the Alliance. It's not just for landowners who are affected. And we have like, I think 9 now grant proposals that are pending. So if you're listening or watching, we would love some funding. I've been working really hard on that and really looking at the long-term health of the watershed. By the way, does anyone know the name of the watershed we live in or where the fire was? It's known as Waiakoa. Does anyone know where it drains? Kealia Pond, the National Wildlife Refuge, home to many of our native endangered species. So extremely important that we prevent runoff, sedimentation loss, and all the things. And we're working with Department of Health on the Clean Water Act funding. The Alliance has been written into the Ma'alaya Bay Watershed Management Plan. And so our work was recognized in there, which allows us to access that funding. And we're trying to patchwork together all of these different funding sources because we know this is a really long-term project, right? And we have to think ahead while responding to immediate emergencies, which is difficult. It's a juggling act. But we really look to partners like the county to look to FEMA for other recovery support, because we'll need a lot more than what our small but mighty organization is trying to attract. So I look at everyone in this room as a partner in that process, and welcome everyone to join us. I have cards with me that have our website on it, and you can sign up to come to our meetings and get involved that way. Or if you want the old-fashioned way, you can just give me your information on a clipboard that I brought. So thank you so much. And I guess later on I can answer questions.
Thank you, sir.
As you can tell, Sarah is an educator because she also had that little pop quiz, right? She couldn't resist. You're all sitting in a school cafeteria, so she's just going to ask a teacher question. We want to offer a little bit of time to help with any questions. Our federal and state partners are here. Even though they didn't have an update for you, we're also going to hang out a little bit after. Councilmember Sugimura and Sarah are also available for questions. So if you do have a question, raise your hand and we'll get that mic if it reaches over to you. But I also did want to say we'll be here for a little while as well. Okay, yes. Maybe I can have Amos see if that mic can reach. There you go.
I have a question about, oops, is it working? Hello, hello? I don't know. I'm loud, I don't really need it.
Sorry, we use the microphone just for the live streaming.
Okay.
There we go.
I wanted to ask about how the Army Corps bills our insurance companies for the debris removal that was done.
Okay, great question. Colonel Curry, you thought we were done with you. Yet you just sit there ready. Okay, you can help with that question.
Well, and yeah, thank you. And it's a question we get all the time. So, and it's really a partnership with the county, because actually the Army Corps and FEMA aren't directly billing the residents or the owners. So essentially the county. So as everything is complete, the county will review all those packets. I don't know. We'd probably have to ask a county rep to determine if they're going to start that ahead of when Lahaina is going to be done. I know they've told for Lahaina community that this really won't start until the complete debris removal for the entire island of Maui is complete. So you can imagine that it's a ways into the future. But what they will do is, as they have the information through your rights of entry for your insurance policies, essentially they will review those and then come back for you to provide to the county whatever is left of your policy that was underneath debris removal. So as they work through that, again, it's the nuance to it is that if you're spending part of your debris rider, or part of your insurance policy, if you're using that for debris removal, your insurance company has accepted that this is a viable cost according to your insurance, that the county will not take that money back. It goes back to what we've said from the beginning. It should be zero out-of-pocket cost for those that opt in to the government program. So if you use all your insurance money for debris removal, whatever's in that line, then there should be no additional fees. The words of advice that they've also offered pretty regularly is, if your insurance gave you that money up front, obviously use it for debris removal, but also if you don't use it, hold on to it, because it will take some time, but eventually the county intends to come back to recoup that money. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sort of. My concern is that I have a lot of debris still left on my property that wasn't taken by Army Corps. That's going to be expensive to remove. And I tried very hard to get it removed by the Army Corps while they were on site, but was told they weren't tagged, so they couldn't remove those trees. But it's going to be a big expense, and I want to make sure that my insurance covers that before it goes to pay. I want to make sure that I'm not out of pocket for something because the job wasn't completed by the Army Corps.
Right. And I'll look throughout the room if I'm answering this incorrectly, because again, it's one that, just as we've been part of this interagency partnership, I think I'm comfortable answering it. But I mean, again, for others, if I'm saying something wrong here, but the advice would be to work with your insurance company to determine if within your insurance policy, that work that you still need to do on your property is eligible under your insurance policy. If it is, then you can execute that work. Your insurance provides what the insurance policy is supposed to. And again, that is what will be the whole reason that money has to be taken back is against the legal requirements for there not to be duplication of benefits. So if you've already used it for your debris removal, and again, your insurance company agreed that's part of what we cover, then you should be able to do that, and it won't be a duplication of benefits when the county comes back if there's anything left that hasn't been spent yet from your insurance policy.
And does the county or the state keep any of the insurance money, or does that all go to Army Corps?
So I think I'll have to phone a friend on that one. I do think it does come back as part of the payments to FEMA. It does come back to FEMA. But again, to the residents, again, that zero out-of-pocket cost is the key point, that it does come back as the significant amount of funding that has been applied to do this work. And again, that insurance money that you did not use does come back through the channels from the county to FEMA.
Yeah, my understanding of the additional coverage for the debris removal on my insurance policy wasn't available to me that I could go use it, so much as this is what happens in a disaster when they come back to collect because everything's gone. But that's again where I go, I will ask them, are these funds available for me to hire to have the job completed? And hopefully so, because otherwise I end up feeling like my money paid for something and I didn't get the full job.
Right. No, I think that's exactly what you should do.
No.
Thank you.
So I'll try to continue that. So at the beginning of this disaster, the governor and our officials and the governor's team, we met to discuss how were we going to go forward with debris removal. One of the options was to go with the Army Corps of Engineers. The other was to hire local, or to hire contractors who came in from the mainland, or just to hire somebody on their own. So ordinarily, you'd use all of your insurance money to pay for your debris cleanup. And if you didn't have insurance policies, like if you don't have homeowners insurance for anything else, you're responsible for how that was going to be paid and removed. So we made a choice as a county to go with the Army Corps of Engineers, but really it was the governor's, he had the final say on that. And that was the decision made. Now, this may not work for everybody in every situation. Each individual situation is so very different. But I do want to echo what Colonel said. The purpose for those of you who took debris removal coverage, because not everybody takes that. It's your individual choice if you want that kind of coverage. Those who took it, that money is supposed to be used for that purpose. Now, we get lots of homeowners, especially in Lahaina, who are underinsured in their policy. And that money, whether it's $20,000, $40,000, $60,000, would come in very handy to help rebuild. Now, everybody can do what they want to do. It's free choice, but that's not what you took the insurance out for. So you just got to watch yourself if you decide to use it for something other than its stated purpose or what you paid for. And so what I was told just last night in a meeting, and I know Mike's sitting back there and I was on the call, is that Army Corps had a mission, and the mission was a certain boundary on each of your properties. They weren't there to remove every item that could have been removed. They were there to remove the items that were within this, again, property line. So there are other things that could be seen as what you think should be removed. You can use your policy to remove those items that have not yet been removed. And then when it's time to whatever's left, if you use it all, then the answer will be, I don't have anything else to contribute. If you haven't used it for that, then that will be collected and that will be turned over to FEMA, because that was the agreement from the beginning. Anybody with homeowners insurance for debris removal will give that. Either you hire your own. If you didn't sign a right of entry, you would hire somebody to do that. If you did not, if you opted in, then the money goes to FEMA. But I can hear your concern, and other people have the same concern, which is you have on the borderline or just outside of your border things that you want removed or cleaned. And it's not that the Corps did a bad job or they didn't finish your job. They did exactly what was in their mission, but you have excess, and other people will have the same. So of course you can use your debris insurance to do that. But if there's any excess, I mean, that will go to FEMA. And if you use it all, then of course it will not go to FEMA. I hope that answers questions that many people have. I actually didn't come up here to answer questions right now. I wanted to say a couple of things that I should have said earlier. I'm doing that reverse introduction. So I missed one of the meetings up here because I was off island, and I thought Amos had been introduced at that meeting, which is why I didn't interfere earlier. It just seemed like that was already actually. I think Mahina thought the same thing. So I would like to formally let you know how this process went forward. When after Herman Andaya resigned, we immediately started a search. And in that search, we got 15, it may have been 16 applicants for the position of administrator. Now, I'm not sure how anybody would feel about applying for a position under all the scrutiny that had been going on during August, September, October, and November. But we had that. Daryl Oliveira was the lead person. Daryl was only here for 90 days, 89 days. He was on contract, came to us from the Big Island, former administrator of emergency services on the Big Island, former fire chief of his island. Very qualified. You guys all got to make your own assessment of him over the time you've seen him. And so he headed it up along with the 3 other emergency management folks from Kauai, the Big Island, as well as Honolulu. The 4 of those folks did an interview. They narrowed down the 15 or 16 to 5. Amos Lono Kailua Hewitt was among those 5. They were put in really an all-day test at the UH Maui, going through several scenarios, having to make presentations on the spot. One was if you were gonna make a presentation to the mayor, and others if you're gonna make a presentation to the county council. So this was all scenario-driven. You just got this just happened to you. What do you do? Write a plan, write a steps right now. And so they were all put through that. At the end, they were scored. The top 3 scores were given to myself and our administrative team. And there were 3 of us that held interviews of the top 3. From that group, Amos had the highest scores and the highest score. And we went ahead and did our interviews and extended him an offer. So we're very proud of him that he put his name in and that he accepted the position, the challenge. Again, he explained a little bit about himself. He's much more than just that as a father and a husband. Kumu hula, longtime hula, Hawaiian cultural practitioner, fluent in the Hawaiian language and several other things. So there's much about him. And but I know you folks are interested in the emergency management part. He's qualified in that side too. But anyway, so if you guys want to get to know Amos more, you'll see him around. And he's already, I think he just got back from Kauai. He's been spending his time going to the different emergency EOCs around the state to familiarize himself. But he's got 25 years of battalion chief fire, so he knows a lot about our system. So that's how he was chosen. But since I have the mic, I also want to introduce you to Sarah Jenkins. Comes to us from Molokai, you guys, and a graduate of Duke University. And that's why you saw her. She was very polished and stepped right up here, even though she didn't know she was going to do the public speaking part. But obviously there was no let off on that, picking up from Mahina. So Sarah, thank you. She's new to our team as well. So nice hand for Sarah. Very, I want to say sustainability, your major degree?
Environmental science and policy.
Environmental science and policy. Right up your guys' alley. All the guys here who want to talk about that stuff, that's who you can have a conversation. Yeah, anybody else? Yeah, no, you're not taking her anywhere, Doc. Oh, even try. And then finally, I just wanted to thank, I wanted to highlight something that Councilmember Sugimura stated, that if you have any questions, call her. Yeah.
That's too funny. No stealing. Do not take Sarah Jenkins. Okay, we found a local girl from Molokai who is very successful in polish and super proud. But anyway, and thank you, Sarah and team. We started by offering the chance to have a question. We've been at it almost an hour, but we'll take a few more and then we'll go from there. Sarah? Here you go, other Sarah.
Thank you. I think this question might be for FEMA, possibly Bob. So I remember I think it was about a month after the disaster was federally declared, that wind damage was added into the mix. And so I'm curious, as far as work done on the ground in Kula, how much wind damage has been taken care of here?
Yeah, so it would come in two perspectives. One, if there's wind damage to individual homes, they come through our IA program, and I don't have a number off the top of my head, but I can go back and look for that. The second would be if there's any damage to public infrastructure due to the wind damage. So we could look at that too, or maybe an emergency protective measure. Maybe the wind broke a tree and it's hanging over like a public street or something like that. We would reimburse those costs to the county and city, or the county or the state, depending on whose responsibility it was. So I don't have numbers, but I could go check for you and come back. But you know, that's where it would be at. Maybe like wind damage to the roof or something like that, if there was wind damage to a roof of a house.
Thank you. So was that the responsibility of the landowner, to, just like the fire damage, to request that? And
that's correct.
To
yeah.
hear that wind was included and do something?
Yeah, so they would, you know, as part of the application process, state what the damage was from, fire damage or wind damage. Our inspector would go out and look at it, and if it was, you know, had to do with habitability of the house, they would be eligible, depending on whether you're an owner or a renter. Definitely, if you're an owner, depending on insurance, you'd be eligible for some type of direct grant to make minimal repairs to the house.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll take a couple more questions. Kai in the back. Kai, I'm not sure the cord's gonna reach. Could you just, yeah. Careful, don't tug.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, for flying over, for being here. I know, can you hear me all right on this? How about now? Better? Better? There we go. Thank you. I know this is one of like the last meeting and we're short on time and everything. So rather than ask a question and get an answer, I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions for the historical record, if that works, that we can address in the future months to come. Again, as we've talked about before, who finishes up cleaning up the remaining cleanup on vacant lots, areas outside of the ash footprint, and areas that were missed? We understand that the Army Corps did complete their mandate and do what they're asked to come in and do, which we understand. They did a good job on the properties that were clean, but Kula is not 100% done with debris removal because there's still debris everywhere. It's just outside of those ash footprint areas. So it's continuing to address who cleans that up or how we get that clean. Who do homeowners need to speak to in order to get the results of the soil samples that were taken during the scrapes performed in phase 2? Because that is really valuable data for the community to have. And if ever, my understanding is that the homeowners have to request that specifically from Army Corps to get the results of that. Because if the whole community had those results, it could be pretty meaningful in terms of data. When are we going to get serious about addressing trees that are hanging over utility lines? And by serious, I don't mean suggesting we contact Asplund. I mean actually getting serious. I saw 2 more trees on utility lines just on my drive down here today. That came down today. How are we going to fix the roads and parking lots that were damaged by the cleanup process? How do we move forward with establishing a green waste facility in Kula so that people stop throwing green waste in gulches? When are we going to address the heavy metal toxicity that's still being detected on wipe tests in homes that were adjacent to the burn zone? How do we invest in additional infrastructure to harness fresh water during winter rains that last through times of drought? It seems to me we've got devastating flooding and then devastating drought. That sounds like an infrastructure problem. How many feet does a tree need to be from the center line of a road for it to be eligible as removal as a hazard tree? Because my understanding is if it's within 60 feet of the center line and it's threatening to fall on the road, that can be eligible for removal as a hazard tree. Have the water bill credits been issued to homeowners who use their own water to fight the fire? And how do we ensure that all this talk leads to action to ensure this never happens again? So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. I see Councilmember Sugimura making note of much of that. So appreciate you putting that on the record tonight as well, Kyle. All right. Okay, Bob would like to address something.
It's come up a couple times tonight, and in the presentation, they talked about the 6 RSF recovery support functions. And so one of the things that's happening is county, state, and federal government are working in those 6 areas. And it's really important, earlier you talked about community involvement, right? And whole of community is really critical to this, that you work within those areas so we identify additional needs there. There's a lot of assistance that's going to become available to you from FEMA alone. We take the total that we spend in a disaster and we put 15% aside in mitigation. So right now my projection is like 2.5 billion of assistance that we'll spend here. So that's $375 million we put aside for mitigation for projects that build resilience later on. It's a 75-25% cost share. And so we want to work with you and the state to identify what are those priorities for those projects that need to happen. And you're mentioning some of those today as I'm listening here to some of the discussion. Also, there's a bunch of different other federal agencies, whether it be HUD and CDBGR funding, or we talked about the USDA funding and NRCS, and there's a bunch of different ones. All those organizations, some of them are annually appropriated, some of them are supplements. And so there's a supplement going through Congress, and once the CR is addressed, the National Disaster Assistance Act would be the next thing out there to be funded, and that would fund a lot of those funds that need special supplements, and that will bring additional funding here. So I think there's an opportunity for you to really come together and look at some of these systemic issues and try to address those, leveraging some of the funding that will come to you from this disaster. So I just wanted to let you know that and how important, and working with Amos and the county recovery support functions, Josiah and Luke from the state, and our federal team will be here too to work with you over the years to bring those together. So just want to make sure you did that. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Before we close tonight, I did want to point out our Here on our left, for every meeting, we've been having great success in live streaming, and we figured out how to do wonderful things online. And so I did really want to thank David here. You seem kind of quietly just setting up and being here, but he has done a phenomenal job at making sure we can get our meetings out online. He's joined tonight by Owen. It takes a dynamic team to put it all together. And actually, David is not from Maui. He's joined us in the disaster from which state? California? San Diego. He brings with him some expertise in the online presence and the digital media. So we appreciate, he's been here for a few months now, believe it or not. I think we're going to just keep calling him a Maui boy at some point, and then he'll just never go home. But we're very grateful for all of that work. So at this point, we're going to close tonight's meeting. Mahalo to all of you. To Mayor Bisson, if you have any final closing thoughts? Okay, then we'll be here hanging out with you as we normally do. Thank you all, everyone, very, very much. Mahalo and aloha, and drive safe.